Just fucking do it. Subscribe now.
So our deal is between a company called Lafarge and another company called BCI. Lafarge is and was a big player in concrete, as well as mining. It originally started with mining of limestone, and it branched into, and originally from France, and they branched into concrete and other aggregate products and gypsum. And they had a large distribution presence in Europe, North America, Africa, South America, and a small toehold in Southeast Asia and the Philippines. They were looking to expand their presence in Southeast Asia because it was the fastest growing market. They also had some pressure from competition. One of their biggest competitors' sales was about just 8% below Lafarge, so they were getting pressure to keep expanding. They were paying attention to the market, and at the time, in Southeast Asia, there was a financial crisis, and Malaysia, the country of Malaysia, canceled $21.5 billion, I believe, in infrastructure plans. Construction or concrete is a big component of the infrastructure construction, and therefore analyst estimates for the company BCI that was operating in Southeast Asia underperformed, and and BCI stock collapsed. And Lafarge was paying attention, and they tried to do a hostile takeover of BCI. They ended up acquiring, I believe it was about 29% of BCI, purchasing its stock to try to get majority control of the company. Again, this would have given Lafarge, if they got majority control of BCI, they could have a huge presence in Southeast Asia. BCI put up a good defense to fight the hostile takeover, and Lafarge ended up getting kind of stuck at roughly 32% of BCI's stock in company, and they got stuck in a stalemate. And
there was no more other businesses to acquire. They were running out of businesses to buy,
and they ended up pausing for a moment, and now they are re-looking at seeing if they can acquire let's say 19% of the company, or potentially the whole company of BCI. And they also have a figurative gun to their head, because BCI also has assets in Canada, and so does Lafarge, and the government will force them to break up and not even have 30%. They can only have 10%. Lafarge can only have 10% of BCI, according to the Canadian government, by the end of the year. So Lafarge has to either acquire the company and to get a majority share, and maybe sell off the Canadian assets. That's not really what they're looking for, anyways, or just sell their existing stock below the 10%. So we analyzed acquiring BCI, and we have the
the numbers you want.
The EBITDA at
4.6.
3.49. No, that was 3.49.
That's the sales. 349 is the sales.
Okay.
The EBITDA was 4.6 for the last year. For the current year, it was 4.6. The year before that, it was 6.2.
Okay. And then we analyzed the EBITDA. We did a term that we analyzed a borrowing rate of, let's say, 7%, term 7 years, analyzed the monthly payment, annual debt service, compared it to the EBITDA. We believe it's too tight for a few reasons. One, it seems to be that the deal only works if you can get a 10-year term. 7% to 10%, the deal can work, but you need a longer term. It's tight. The other problem is again, you're dealing in an unstable country at the time. Malaysia now is going through another political changeover in the administration, and further cutbacks are in place. Potential for infrastructure. More infrastructure jobs will most likely be canceled, and therefore the profits by BCI will also be reduced substantially. So because of the government risk, the tightness of the current financials, it doesn't look like a very good deal. There was one other thing in the balance sheet or income statements.
It went down.
Yeah, there was a line item that consisted in the case.
The exceptional items.
Yeah. Explain that.
Sure. The exceptional items were costed $56 million in 1997, then $10 million in 1998, then $28 million in 1999, and for some reason, it was not minus. They got $800,000 back exceptional items this year, so there was no minus for some reason, which is showing our EBITDA numbers like very good, $349 million. But if you go last year, it was only $260 million EBITDA, and then the numbers don't look good. If it's already tight at $350 million, now at life we take the year before numbers at $260 million, the deal gets like extremely tight. And it's kind of funny that it went down one year, down another year, and then 40% increase one year. With no.
And the numbers they gave you in this case, is there a full set of financials? Okay, are there footnotes to relate to this?
No footnotes.
Not so many.
It says there's just conditional net working capital on notes, but there's no note.
Yeah. It did have financials.
Oh.
It didn't show how many shares were outstanding.
Basically, even though it's tight, it almost has to have everything go right.
Yeah.
The notes are not.
Occasionally that happens, but you can't build a career on everything exceptionally, going right, because shit happens, life happens. So you would say you wouldn't do the deal for the reasons that you just gave. Now this was a real deal. Did it go forward?
It doesn't say, right, that it went through. It's talking about how they want it.
Yeah, but we didn't relook at that if it did go through. Moral of the story: there was a lot of political unrest in this big acquisition. It was very risky, and then also, as my partner alluded to, that cost was in every year except this year's financials, so it made this year look better. And it was a substantial cost. So
well, I mean, it depends. Who are the accountants? Do they list who the accountants were?
It would have brought it. No. Law firm, let's see. No, it doesn't even say the law firm.
Well, in some cases, those could be bribes paid. In that part of the world, I told one of the big hedge funds about that time frame, late 90s. This late 90s?
Yeah. 2000.
Yeah.
Okay. Essentially the same. That it all depended on the regime change, and the regime change shifted the wrong way for them. And that's why I say, when you do business with these big foreign governments, how long have they been in power, and when is the next potential regime change? And quite often, of course, they all tell you they're going to be part of the new regime change, which they're not. They all tell you the contract has extensions, and even if it does, they can the new regime can call some kind of a force majeure and cancel all the contracts. So it's better to look at these kind of things that have those aspects to it. Well, this is a 3 or 4 year deal. We're going to milk it, and then whatever comes. But I wouldn't do the deal either. But you'll see when we look at it from afar, there may be other strategic reasons to do it. Okay, and I don't know of any, and you haven't found any. So it's a good reason to say next. Now, there's another theory of acquisition, M&A. Steve Jobs said when he was in his heyday, say no 1,000 times. And even though you may lose some deals because the team is new, et cetera, your lawyers and accountants are new, working on, trying to fit to your mold. You're better off losing a few deals than making a bad deal. Okay. I say it a little differently. You remember the slide, K-N-O-W, know when to say no. Okay. But the longer you do go without doing a deal, your board's going to feel inadequate, all kinds of things. You may lose some of them, but that's fine. Okay, that's me fine talking. I'm here living in a castle, and so. But for you, if you are living off the exhaust of your '57 Chevy, it can be different. Now, you've already done deals. You're from a family business. You're from a family business, so you're not sucking off fumes from a '57 Chevy. Okay, and so you'll just naturally look at deals differently than some of the other groups where they've got the burn marks from the tailpipe on their lips. But I agree.
That gives them an advantage, though, because they got the pressure on.
Correct. That's exactly correct. You took the words right out of my mouth. But not all those deals are going to work out. And that's why it's so important to have a string of deals. And when you see companies make 2 or 3 acquisitions in a row, it's because the first one fucked up. And they're kind of mushed the numbers together with the second and third and or maybe even the fourth deal to make it look better than it really is. Rick Scott did that when he was building Columbia Healthcare. He made 2 acquisitions, both of which were dog shit in the beginning. Then he made 3 acquisitions in a row, bam, 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 that were big enough in scope to make up for the mistakes he made in the first 2 deals. And of course, he built the largest healthcare company in the world. But to do that, you have to know that you've got enough capital to go and make those other deals. Because not everybody, seller finance is there to get you started, not to continue a lifestyle of seller finance. And that's all the more reason that when you're doing these deals, it's always got to be an option. And remember, on the 60-40 method, and since the loan to value for most banks is 60-65%, even though Jason Nagy's got it up to 70%, so he's got 10% float that he can pay fees for. After you do 2 or 3 deals, nobody's interested in your movable fees. I mean, they're going to say, why? For you, because you're already established in business, 50, 80 years, whatever it is. I mean, what do you need this for? Okay. There's different ways of answering that. One of which I'm going off on my own, blah, 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 blah. But it's only to start. After Rick did his first, I think on his 7th deal, he had to pay up front. Because and he's always using different banks. And my suggestion, they looked at the first 2 deals. See, most people, you can put 5 deals in, and they'll just look at the 5 deal numbers. This financing bank, I think it was Bank of America, looked at deal by deal. Well, your first deal was a fuck up. Your second deal was a fuck up. You saved your first and second with a third, fourth, and fifth deal. Okay? Not many banks, they're too lazy now. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen. But normally they're too lazy to go back and analyze every single deal. But that's how you're supposed to do it. And that's how I was taught when I was doing financial analysis. Fortunately, for us, it's not done that often. But some financial institutions, they see seller's finance, which we call seller's equity, will just walk away because it's so foreign to them. They don't want to get used to it. And more importantly, they don't want their senior credit officers to get used to it because, it'll open Pandora's box. That's how they look at it. I look at it the other way. It'll increase their fees dramatically. Ultimately, not in the beginning, to the extent that you go beyond the 60-40 and you go beyond the seller's equity and the commercial debt. But you made the right decision. I happen to be part of, not this deal, but that regime change. And I remember telling a young 32-year-old MBA from Harvard, who was the son of one of the ministers who was going to be the project manager. And the kid got up to go take a piss, and Sally and I were there, and his mother had gone to the seminar, okay? His father hadn't. And I told her, I said, Lydia, this kid I don't care if he's the smartest 32-year-old that ever walked. This is way beyond him. Anyway,